All right, welcome into another day of your daily Devo. I'm Pastor Rick, and we are jumping in to Hosea chapter 13. There are 14 chapters in this book, so we are getting real close to finishing off this one. So today is the day. Drop in the comments, what book do you want to do next? I'd love to hear from you on that one. So what book do you want to do next after we get done with Hosea tomorrow? So get a little ramp up time, and we'll probably do the same kind of thing that we did with Hosea. Is our first day of Devos will probably just be a little bit of like background to the book, and because I think that's important to help us like get the most out of it as we go through the book. So here we go. Hosea 13, ready, set. Oh yeah, like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Love it if you would do that for me. And so let's go. When Ephraim spoke, there was trembling. He was exalted in Israel, but incurred guilt through Baal and died. So Ephraim was kind of exalted amongst the northern kingdom, just as it says here, is exalted in Israel, but he incurred guilt through Baal and died. Just to continue to remember that the wages of sin is death, that don't mess around with idolatry, don't mess around with just, unfaithfulness towards God, because it's death. It leads to death. It always leads to death. It cannot be cheated. It doesn't matter if you've been able to toy around with sin in a particular area. It's a guarantee, it's like death and taxes kind of a thing. Like the penalty of sin is a guarantee. And so just recognizing that and not convincing yourself that you've somehow skirted the system, and you're going to get by. Obviously, trying to avoid punishment is never really the best motivation for, trying to convince yourself not to do something. But, hey, sin is so bad, I'll take any angle I can to help convince people to stop sinning. And so, if you found yourself, like locked up in a pattern of sin in your life and you haven't experienced any kind of judgment, punishment, struggle anyway because of it, don't, again, like we said this a couple chapters ago, don't misunderstand God's patience for his approval. Like, it doesn't mean that because you haven't been kind of punished that's not sin, or that you're not in some trouble. And so now they continue to sin and make themselves a cast image, idols skillfully made from their silver, all of them the work of craftsmen. So they were dedicating a lot of time and energy to their idolatry. They weren't just skating by. They were giving their best, really. And that's kind of where it starts to be even more offensive, to God. So it wasn't like, whoops-a-daisy, I sinned today. It was like, I'm going to practice and hone my skill so that I can create this idol, so that we can sin. People say about them, let the men who sacrifice kiss the calves. Therefore, they will be like the morning mist, like the early dew that vanishes, like chaff blown from a threshing floor, or like smoke from a window. When you juxtapose that with how the Bible describes the righteous will never be shaken. The righteous are rock solid. The righteous are planted like trees beside the water. Like there's a really big comparison there between the righteous and those like just sucked into sin. Is they wither, they die, they don't bear fruit in season. And then verse 4 here, it says, I have been the Lord your God ever since the land of Egypt. No God but me, and no Savior exists besides me. So, like, me. and you know no God but me. He's just calling on him really to be honest. To be honest, I've been your God ever since the land of Egypt. Do you remember Egypt? Do you remember what was going on in Egypt? And speaking to you, do you remember when you were lost in sin? Do you remember before you came to Christ, like what your life was like, the hopelessness, the despair, the lack of purpose, the lack of fulfillment? You know no God but me. None of them are real. It's all manufactured. There's no savior beside me. Like I'm the only one. I knew you in the wilderness, in the land of drought. And here's where, when they had pasture, they became satisfied. They were satisfied and their hearts became proud. So like that was this progression that they followed that we need to pay attention to. We need to pay attention to when they had pasture, they became satisfied. When they were satisfied, their hearts became proud. Oh yeah. We forgot this one line. Therefore, they forgot me. So when that's where it sounds silly, but like that's where like a gratefulness journal kind of thing, that when you create a habit of taking time each and every day to count or recount the blessings of God in your life, and when you do it every day, you have to kind of get down to the nitty gritty, and you have to say you're thankful for pretty small things, things that seem a little bit insignificant. The safeguard behind that, though, is that you can keep your heart from becoming proud by continuing to give God credit for the things that he's putting into your life, and you avoid the trap of somehow thinking that you are the source, the reason, the provider, any of those things that God actually is. So verse 7 says, so I'll be like a lion to them. I will lurk like a leopard on the path. I'll attack them like a bear robbed of her cubs, and tear open the rib cage over their hearts. And I will devour them like a lioness and a wild beast that would rip them open. I will destroy you, Israel. You have no help but me. Like there's some jealousy, anger kind of stuff. Like, again, this is God trying to communicate his heart of passion and love for his people. It's not like there's no other God described in the world that loves and wants to be with his people. It's every other God that's like been created by man, the ideas of these gods. It's like you offer them sacrifices to appease them, to keep them from being angry with you and not providing the crops that you need or whatever. No God outside of the Bible is described as caring about you and wanting your faithfulness and wanting you to love him. And so it's kind of an interesting little comparison there. Where now is your king, that he may save you in all your cities, and the rulers you demanded, saying, give me a king and leaders. I give you a king in my anger, and take away a king in my wrath. Ephraim's guilt is preserved, his sin is stored up, labor pains coming on him. He is not a wise son. When the time comes, he will not be born. I will ransom them from the power of Sheol. I will redeem them from death. Death, where are your barbs? Sheol, where is your sting? Compassion is hidden from my eyes. We serve a God that brings life out of death. We serve a God that basically it is never too far gone. It is never too late. It is never beyond his power. I will ransom them from the power of Sheol. I will redeem them from death. even from death. Death, where are your barbs? Sheol, where is your sting? Then Paul makes reference to this in 1 Corinthians 15. Oh death, where is your sting? Oh grave. Although he flourishes among his brothers, an east wind will come, a wind from the Lord rising up from the desert. His water source will fail, his spring will run dry. The wind will plunder the treasury of every precious item. So again, when the provision came, when the pasture was there, when they became satisfied, they became proud, and they forgot the Lord. So God's just coming in to solve that problem. Okay, you're going to get all stuck on these other provisions. Well, then I'm just going to remove these provisions from you. Your water source is going to fail. And then when it comes down to struggle and pain, you're going to cry out once again. And it's for our good and our benefit, because it's better for God to inflict a small, for a season, some pain upon us so that we will return to him and be saved for eternity, rather than to just allow us to continue down our path of destruction. So even when we read tough things about the Lord, again, it's pointing to the depth of love in his heart, that he wants to bring us back. And he knows that if I can make you a little uncomfortable in your journey of sin, perhaps I can get you to abandon your ways of sin. Samaria will bear her guilt because she has rebelled against her God. They will fall by the sword. The children will be dashed to pieces. Their pregnant women ripped open. It's not fun words there. But again, they were offering themselves to gods and goddesses of fertility, looking for all of their fruitfulness, both naturally and, natural in nature, in their crops and all that kind of stuff, but also in their reproduction of themselves, or having kids, and the blessing that is perceived in having kids. And so here's where he's saying, you're not going to be able to have kids anymore. You're that stuff's going to go away because you are offering yourselves to idols. You're offering yourselves to these fertility goddesses, and they're not real. I'm your God. I'm the one that gives you the power to get wealth. I'm the one that allows you to bear children. I'm the one that brings prosperity upon you. So stop giving credit that belongs to me to these man-made images that were crafted by you, which then just leads back into your own pride. So this is God being able to come in and cut off the power of those idols over the people, because he shows them how ineffective and messed up they are. So then they will turn their backs on those idols and come once again to seek the Lord. So let's just do it without having to be judged, right? Let's choose today that I'm not going after any other gods. I'm not going after any of that. So I am going to seek the Lord with all of my heart, and be thankful that we serve a God that can redeem even from death. So no matter how far a person is gone, it's not beyond the reach of God to rescue that person and bring them into the fold. So let's be thankful today. We have no help but him. And let's guard against this pattern of behavior, that when we have pasture, and when we become satisfied, that our hearts would not become proud and we would not forget the Lord. So don't forget the Lord. Rather, be encouraged by who he is. Be strengthened by who he is. And I will see you tomorrow.